podcast put together with Red Raider fans in mind. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3.
That's really a great way to describe the sporting results today. If you are a red-blooded American / Texas Tech fan, as both the Red Raiders lose and the U.S. men's national team scores a draw with Wales, and while that's not as bad as a loss, it kind of feels like one because you led for so long and gave away a cheapie there in the 82nd minute. So just kind of a bunch of farts today from a sporting standpoint. But heck, Saturday kind of makes up for it, right? It's Tech Talk on Double T 97.3 and Double T 97.3.com. Mike Gustafson, Clint Scott, Aaron Dickens with you here until 6 o'clock. You just heard the Red Raiders lose to Creighton in the Maui Invitational. I guess those are sunglasses. Red Raiders with a huge win in Ames, Iowa. Really just can't say enough good things about their result. It wasn't, Gus, the prettiest, right? If you were drawing this up, right, you would have made that game look like, the Sistine Chapel, right? I mean, it would have been glorious. But sports are rarely like that, right? It's usually ugly at times, maybe a lot of the times. Ultimately, all that matters, it's kind of like childbirth, right? As long as you get a good result, or a plane landing.
There you go. I've been better analogy there. I'm with you. I think
also, both times inappropriate to applaud. I don't need to hear it.
Definitely no applaud for a plane landing, please.
Yeah, no doubt. I think I'm not sure that the game could have gone more to script than in terms of game flowing out. I would have guessed. Because twice last week you said, if I give you 21 points, will you take it? And I think your last comment on
21
on Friday.
So relaxed for
exactly.
an entire game.
Just chilling. 2 scores in that game would have felt like
would have had that on the smaller TV.
Put the backups in. No, I think and I think the last time we talked about it, you were like, if I give you 17, and I was like, I really rather have 21. But considering that Iowa State's played a 10-7, won a 10-7 game, lost a 14-11 game. What happened the other night? That's on par, and then you throw in first road win, you throw in the weather condition or just the cold. Really, there really wasn't much else to deal with other than cold, but it was really, really cold. By many accounts, the coldest game Texas Tech's ever played in. So great to get that result, and it sets up. Obviously, you're going bowling. Sets up a really nice matchup this weekend. And I say nice, but a really nice opportunity this weekend to play OU and get some monkeys off your back, so to speak, in terms of winning Big 12 records and 6 games at home, some things that haven't been done around here in a while. So
there's a lot at stake.
Lots to be happy about.
But the pressure of extending your season is not one of them. You can take that one off the table. As you mentioned, you have a chance to post a winning record in conference for the first time since 2009. You have a chance to beat Oklahoma for the first time since 2011. You had a chance to maybe beat Oklahoma at home for the last time ever. Who knows if they come back here in the next 2 seasons?
Probably a better chance.
Beyond that, who knows?
Probably a better chance Texas comes back here than OU, at least post Big 12. Yeah.
And you have a chance to get your 7th win. And all of those things are gigantic, and it's all out in front of you. It's a fairly narrow point spread, so I think the experts think this is kind of a toss-up ball game. And if you can go up there to Ames and win like you did, right, then you can beat this Oklahoma team. They had a great first quarter against Oklahoma State, and it was pretty not so great the last 3 quarters. So. Game on, but still plenty to talk about with this game. Defense showed up. We were kind of wondering about, hey, what does this defense look like post Tyree Wilson?
Yep.
And
And we got our confirmation on that he won't be part of the game versus Oklahoma and won't be playing in the bowl game and has declared himself for the draft. And none of that is really a surprise. The only glimmer of hope there might have been that his foot was going to be okay to play against Oklahoma, but we knew he wasn't going to play in the bowl game. And so, and nothing but affection coming from Coach McGuire and company. And he'll get to – I assume he'll get to do a senior day type deal this weekend.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I don't even know where he is classification-wise, but everybody knew that he was – playing himself apparently into the first round. So most certainly because he might have had a chance. Somebody was going to take him had he come out last year, but he was nowhere near where he is now. Let's hope that injury isn't some sort of a career-threatening type situation. But to your point, it's the first day in the life in the post Tyree Wilson era, and that's a big deal because he's an outstanding player.
And you gave up, I would say, an alarming amount of yardage between the 20s, right? Like, if you would have told me before the game that Tech would have been outgained by like 200 yards, right, I would have been puckered up pretty tight. Like, I would have been very, very concerned. And it played out that way, right? Because all these drives, they're moving it fairly easily between the 20-yard lines, and then when they get to the red zone, you stiffen up.
Yeah.
Either you increase your performance or they fall apart or some combination of the two. But they were 1 of 5 red zone scoring opportunities. It's the worst mark that they've had in the red zone since like 2014. Like, it was, you had an all-time performance in terms of red zone defense. They had it. They had 4th and 1 on the 2 twice and came up empty.
Yeah.
Right? They had 1st and 10 from the 16 and missed a field goal. Right? They had another 1st and 10 in the red zone. No points. I mean, that's any one of those things goes differently, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's either a loss or a very, very different ball game there at the end.
And that – and we learned, I guess, the only way I knew about it was I ended up seeing a tweet about it, but the kick at the end of the first half was blocked or tipped.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bob Cole.
Yeah, he got a piece of it, and that's another long, tall dude like Tyree Wilson, and because it just looked like a bad kick. It looked like he just hooked the mess down there, and but the rest of that deal was a disaster for Iowa State and very good for the Red Raiders.
More Tech Talk next.
The podcast that finishes your workday in a very Red Raider way. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey, it's the Juice on Double T 97.3 and doublet97.3.com with Mike Gustafson and Clint Scott. I'm Aaron Dickens. Time for some headlines brought to you by our good friends at Specs Wine, Spirits, and Finer Foods. Earlier today in the World Cup, the United States men's national team scored a draw with Wales 1-1 to open up group play. The U.S. struck first in the 36th minute and led until they were called for a penalty in the box. In the 82nd minute, Gareth Bale knocked that one in to tie the game. The U.S. will next play on Friday against group leaders England. That will be a very, very tough test. The Red Raider men's basketball team sustained its first defeat of the season today in Maui at the Maui Invitational. 76-65 was the final against the 10th-ranked Creighton Blue Jays. Daniel Baccio, 17 points, 5 rebounds. He was 7 of 12 from the field. 4 Red Raiders scored in double figures. It was not enough. They'll be back in action tomorrow. Tip-off at 1:30 against the loser of the Louisville Arkansas game, which is going on right now. It just started. Arkansas is up 5-0 with 14:45 left in the first half. You too can join the program. We'd love to hear from you today. Let us know what you think on the Yates Flooring Center chat line at TT973.com. What did you think of Tyler Shuck on Saturday, Gus?
Well, he found a way to engineer two really impressive long drives. The first touchdown was a 96 yard drive, and per the norm for this team, not a little 3-play shock drive, but a grinder of a drive. And we've seen these guys do that.
That's their wheelhouse.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And get a team going and mix in some tempo. It wasn't all tempo, but mix in some tempo and just get a team on their heels and I say get them tired. That doesn't mean like tired, like end of game, just exhausted, tired. But there's a point in a drive like that where you're 10, 12 plays in, like needing, a
breather.
Yeah, and you're not getting it. And so anyway, that drive in the first half, and then the big one with, what took the ball back with about 6 minutes left after their TD put them ahead and engineered a nice drive and made some plays. And then maybe, I don't know what really stands out about as I sit here, and there's some recency effect here. When we get the ball back with 3 minutes left, 3 minutes left, then I'm thinking get a first down. Got to get a first down, unless it's just a first play first down. And then they'll be in trouble because we had made them burn a timeout. Just a little bunch of little things that worked our way. And we do 2 QB leads, classic QB power kind of, following the running back through the hole and 7 yards on the first down. I was like, ooh, got them right where we need to. Bang it in there twice, and then they odd misuse, if you will, of the timeouts and ice the game right there.
That the gamesmanship that went into forcing them, and not really, they could have taken the delay a game, but forcing them to take their second time out changed the trajectory of that final possession.
Certainly,
because if Matt Campbell, I assume, his handling of that final sequence was bizarre and bad, and if you're on Cyclone Talk on Ames 97.3, then you're having an interesting day, I'm sure. But
Ames 97.
If he has 2 timeouts in his back pocket for that final sequence, it's totally different. There's a lot more pressure on you.
Yeah, to maybe get a second first down.
Whereas after you got 7 yards on that first play, at that point it was like, all right, this is trending in a very, very positive direction. But for the folks that didn't watch the game or don't remember, Iowa State subbed very late. They had the ball, they subbed very late, and so Texas Tech, being aware of the rules, which requires the offense allow the defense a chance to sub to match, Tech kind of moseyed off the field like, oh, okay, we're going to sub too, but we're going to do it in a very casual way.
Yep.
And, meanwhile, the official just standing over that ball.
Yep.
And then there you go. Timeout burned. Very, very heady play by the Red Raiders there.
And you and I talked about last week that games can be that in the era of high flying offenses. I don't say that era is over like it was long, long ago, but in games where the flow is 48, 45, and 500 or 600 yards on both sides, those delays, like, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 7, who cares? Watch this. That game the other day, that 5 yards was big, and Iowa State knew it, and they called that timeout, and it ended up mattering because that final possession, I won't understand them not calling the timeout after the play. I mean, letting it run down to 37 seconds and calling the time down on third down.
It was over.
I'm sitting there going, it's over now.
Yeah.
Once it got under 30 seconds and third down, because there's a pretty good chance that if they have the second timeout, that if that possession ends in us not getting a first down, you're punting it back to them and you're doing the math. You're going, okay, they're going to get the ball back with about 25, 30 seconds left. No timeouts, which would have been a big deal, needing to score a touchdown. And so I won't say that blew the game for them right there, but it ended any chance. And it has to be there can be no other definition for it than mismanagement, because he had to call that timeout a play sooner. But the fact that we forced him into that thing with the play that you're talking about, and just having I think it was Bradford that went running on the field. I don't know if that was Bradford seeing it or if it was a coach seeing it, but we sent the biggest, I'm not saying slowest, like the biggest, heaviest defensive tackle to go lumbering out there. And it was perfect. And took a key play away from him later on.
This is one of those games where no matter the outcome, the loser was going to leave just absolutely kicking themselves, right? Because, I mean, if you're Iowa State, you were 1 of 5 in the red zone. Like, that's the story, right? The timeout thing is egregious and, it's odd and something that everyone can relate to because it's just numbers. It's just math. It's just clock.
Sure.
But like you said, even if they had played that perfectly in a best-case scenario, you would have had 20 seconds to go, having to drive the length of the field. Your offense is not great, needing a touchdown, et cetera. But, man, 1 of 5 in the red zone. You held Tech to to fewer than 250 yards. It's the lowest yardage total for Tech in a win since at least 99.
Really?
Yeah. I couldn't find anything past that. I mean, they had it. And the same goes for Tech, right? I mean, how many you have the fumble on the opening drive? You have so many kind of just missed opportunities on offense. You only score 14 points, but hey, it was enough. And it's one of those games where you're not going to look back on this, in 15 years, right? When we reminisce about the 2022 season, hopefully we're celebrating a magical 20-year run for McGuire as head coach. Your eyes aren't going to immediately go to that Iowa State score. Right. You're not going to remember the gamesmanship that forced that second burn timeout. You're not going to remember the Miles Cole block field goal. You're not going to remember a lot of things.
I'll remember Cole. That's what I'll remember. You remember that was the.
But man, what a huge win! Huge. Well, more Tech talk next.
It's every Red Raiders' favorite podcast. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey, good afternoon. It's Tech Talk on Double T 97.3 and Double T973.com with Gus and Clint. I'm Aaron. We'd love to hear from you on this fine Monday afternoon. You can let us know what you think on the Yates Flooring Center chat line at Double T973.com. In a game like that, Saturday in Ames, especially for a program like Tech that doesn't play in many 14-10 games, right?
Right.
You're going to have an easy time kind of picking things out that interest you or that were unusual. I can't get over this. There were 4 scoring drives in that entire game, right? 2 by the Red Raiders, 2 by the Cyclones. 3 of them spanned more than 5 minutes of clock. The Red Raiders' first touchdown drive, 14 plays, 96 yards, 5 minutes, 4 seconds. Iowa State's field goal drive in the second quarter, 14 plays, 82 yards, 5 minutes, 40 seconds. Now, their touchdown drive, 7 plays, it was blistering. 7 plays, 53 yards in 3 minutes. Clearly they were just June Jonesing up and down the field. And then the final touchdown drive for the Red Raiders, the game-winning one, 13 plays, 77 yards, 5 minutes, and 2 seconds. I mean, think about how, like, in a game like that, where, as you said, every inch is at a premium, right? You're like World War I guys, battling for just inches on the Western Front. Those are some stressful 5 minutes, man. If you're watching that as a fan, because
sure,
at any second things could go sour, and it's like climbing up a mountain and then slipping, and knowing that you still got to get up to the mountaintop.
Our guy Sisyphus.
Yeah.
And the one guy on the field that, and certainly thinking about it from our perspective, but the one guy on the field that made me nervous, probably made all of us nervous who are rooting for Red Raiders, is their best receiver.
Yeah.
Rutherford, right?
Hutchinson.
Good grief. He felt like, and not really a guy that does a ton. Now, he leads the league leads the Big 12, don't get me wrong. But not his long catch this year is 38 yards. But he's got 105 catches through 11 games. So, and I'm not saying he can't go, deep, and he made some unbelievable catches, and that's an intriguing looking player there.
I think he's clearly limited by the scheme and or the quarterback.
Yep, no doubt. And I don't doubt that one bit. And I think, but he made a couple of those plays where it's like, we've got look like we had him bracketed, and Deckers just throws it over there going, hey, there's my guy. And, here he's catching it and tiptoeing the sidelines and keeping drives alive for them. And in fact, I think he made one of the really good catches that set up their field goal drive. I'd have to think about that. But, of course, he made a pretty good catch. It seemed like there for in about every possession. But, that's all I was thinking about, is just some fluky single coverage deal where a corner falls down or something that gets you in trouble in a game like that where it's that tight. And it just never happened because their just base weapons didn't look like home run guys. And that may be what teams say when they play us. That Taj Brooks Taj Brooks a good player, and Saradra a good player, and they can do a lot of things that there's a lot to have to defend and do that, but you don't go, hey, we need our safeties playing 10 steps deeper against these guys. Probably not. And AD, we saw something the other night that I think is a pattern. And again, I'm not coming at this from football analysis guy, but the few out routes that the few outside receiver deep balls that we threw. And when I say deep balls, those are usually kind of 30, little go route type things or something. And, single coverage out there, hardly ever a safety over top of our outside guys. And I think that tells us what teams fear about us. Where that extra guy goes, who knows? Could be somebody that's in the box defending the run. Could be somebody over the tight end. Could be bracketing Xavier White or so. Who knows? Or Miles Price. But
you are not connecting on very many deep shots.
No,
not that there are very few teams that make their living off of that. But I think that you have been especially below average in terms of your kind of connection rate on those routes. I mean, your big plays have been like intermediate throws that have maybe had some run after catch,
right? Like RPO type plays where you can get that little post deal, and Shuck missed on one of those, and he talked about it. Everybody, in the post game, they missed on the one that looked like, woo, if he catches that and sort of gets a glancing blow and the receiver keep his feet, it was in
green grass.
The Red Sea, man. It was parted, and he's gone. I mean, gonna be able to just jog down there. I think I was fired up for it. I thought just happy for the way the game went, and winning it that way feels like it speaks to Coach McGuire's personality, just grinding out a game, and we're 11 games in, and certainly not world beaters or anything, but I think an important first step for his program in terms of getting that bowl eligibility, and yet another game played to the brand in terms of toughness and competitiveness, because there was that could not have been easy to play in the other night. I mean, I think I heard Don Williams. I think it was Don. I'm saying that because I recognize his voice, but I think in the post-game interview stuff, I listened to all that yesterday, and I think it was Don that said, hey, right now it's 11 degrees out. He was looking at his phone. It was 11 degrees, and so that's 15 minutes post-game. And so, it's a pretty good indication of where that game ended up temperature-wise. And so yet another game played very competitively. and with toughness, and those are really good attributes to have baked into your team. And then hopefully with time and recruiting and development and all that stuff, you play with a higher talent level, and that it becomes like he said, the brand.
Yeah, it's important to set that foundation.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
you bet.
More tech talk next.
It's every Red Raiders' favorite podcast. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3.
I don't know if this rises to the level of bad play call, Gus. One thing that I didn't understand in that final sequence is why Tech continued to run plays after they picked up that first down of their final possession, right? So Shuck runs on their first play of that drive for a 7-yard gain, sets up 2nd and 3. They pick it up on the very next play, as I recall. Let's see. Well, this is not correct. This play-by-play, that's unfortunate. But yeah, as I recall, the way that I remember this, they pick it up on the next play. At that point, it's 1st and 10. Clock is running. Still one timeout in the back pocket for Matt Campbell. But you were under, I don't know, a minute 45 or something. I think you could have just taken a knee there and let Campbell use his timeout and then just continue to run it down.
Right.
It ended up
because
not,
Donovan came in and took a snap, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of the same QB power, right?
And I think because this was asked about during today's availability, and I believe that Smith came in because Shuck his thigh was, I don't know, dinged up or something.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
So you know what? Not some kind of like emergency, but I did not understand that final sequence. Part of me wondered at the time if we had a similar issue that we saw in Fort Worth, where the down and distance displayed on the TV broadcast did not match up with what was actually being shown on the field. Because if that second play did not pick up that first down, and I think it was fairly close, if you're given a bad spot or whatever, then that makes more sense if it's 3rd and 1 to not take a knee. But from looking back at the official play-by-play, you ended up getting that first down. So yeah, that part was puzzling to me, but end result was fine. So who cares? How about Baylor Cup, man?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we've been begging, and we, not just you and me and Clint, but we've just been sitting there just hoping that for someone to make a play and play up to their size, right? You've got Mason Tharp, you've got Baylor Cup, you have these outside receivers that are long, that necessarily can't, beat anybody deep on a routine basis, but they can go up and get it. Wingspan, all that stuff. And that's what you got, right? When you needed it the most, Baylor Cup went up, out-muscled the ISU defender, and made a play. That was a hell of a catch.
Took one away from the guy. And it was a good throw in that situation, too, because the size advantage was there and the ball was thrown up. And Cup was able to just go up and get it and out-muscle the guy and keep his feet in. And, it worked out well because it was single coverage, and there was a lot of motion going on and some misdirection of that play, and it got – if the intent of that was to create single coverage out there, they got it. And the ball was thrown up and Cup won it. And, it was – it was just the culmination of a really nice drive because at that point, that game had been played with Tech, either 0-0 or up 7-3 for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. And so that game had a little bit of a there was a point right there. Of course, at that point, you're down there to the point that you can kick a field goal and tie it if necessary. But playing behind that late, I don't know what a 2-minute drill would have felt like in that. I don't know, but
probably like an actual drill.
Yeah, that's true. He just and it felt like that all game long. Maybe for both teams that, and maybe not. I guess for Iowa State because they made some plays and they converted some long, 2nd and 14s. All right, got them behind the sticks and then yet another wheel route. whatever was going on there.
Yeah.
All those wheel route looks that they were throwing out there kept setting us up for a miscommunication. And maybe one of those things too that's I'm going to say easily correctable, but easy to address because it didn't just fold into the details of the game. That the only person who remembers that on the plane home is the D coordinator. Like, no, we should have like an entire defensive staff. Maybe sends the D line coach all going, we got whatever that was, because they did it. I mean, that to their credit, Decker went back to that thing 3, 4, 5 times in the second half.
Near sideline.
Yes, and all kind of with that wheel route look to it that they were creating some deception. So it ought to give everybody the sort of clarity that, and I say everybody, it would have the attention of the players going, yeah, we got to figure that out.
And to be fair, because neither of us are sitting there on Sundays like breaking down the film, like rewind,
exactly. I'm very
back and forth.
Yeah.
So that could be, if we're being charitable, maybe that was one of those things that they just knowingly gave up and said, hey, listen, we'll live with letting them try to make that play. And credit to Deckers, because not a lot of those
his best throws.
Yeah, those weren't just always easy throws. They can have that if they want to try it. We'll take away this or that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's the case or not. I think it's just worthy of mentioning that as possible.
It made me wonder in the second half if what was being taken away was the receiver.
Hutchinson.
If Hutchinson's getting bracketed or something's happening in a way that's, but they would run that inside receiver off, and Eldridge chased him, kind of across the middle. It's like, okay, nobody's over there. And just, and again, whether that's a function of the play call, that's a great cover 3 beater. I couldn't even begin to, it's
great against quarters.
Exactly. And it may be, or if it just creates confusion and man, or too deep, man under, I couldn't even, it's what we talked about. It's why nobody yells at the TV going, oh my God, more cover 3.
Yeah.
Nobody, the only thing that just makes everybody so mad and very specific in their criticism is terrible play calling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or man, we just always just have a hard time against running quarterbacks.
Right. I told you that. That's that you add that to the, you know how it is. We have trouble with those soft throwing left-handed pitchers.
Mm-hmm.
That is the ultimate. Go write it on that whiteboard. Confirmation bias, and you write those two things down. Because all that is, you could beat the crap out of 17 little left-handers in a row. You could beat the crap out of 17 running quarterbacks in a row. But when one finally does good,
so you throw your hands up. And
the whole fan base
Typical.
goes, "Oh, there it is, another running quarterback that's giving us trouble." Like, yeah, running quarterbacks kind of give everybody trouble.
Iowa State had 422 yards of offense, their third highest total so far this season. The only two games where they accumulated more yardage was against Southeast Missouri State, their opener, 469 yards, and then Ohio, a couple of weeks later, 463. They did not score a touchdown. I'd love to go back and look, and maybe I'll do this later, and see in Tech's relatively recent history how many times they've given up that many yards for that few points,
Yeah.
Because normally it kind of goes hand in hand. If you're going to shut somebody down, you shut them down.
Shut them down. Wasn't the 12 points the fewest points in a win since the 01 A&M game?
Yes.
Yeah. The game where the goalpost game.
You've been listening to the Tech Talk podcast from Double T 97.3. Check out Double T973.com for more from Lubbock Sports Station.